So picture this. You're sitting in a really high-stakes meeting.
Right, the kind where everyone's on edge.
Exactly. The room is practically vibrating with tension.
Yeah.
And the loudest voices are just completely dominating the space, right? They're rapid-firing opinions. They're talking over each other.
Oh, yeah. Standard corporate warfare.
Yeah. And you can feel this immense, almost physical pressure building in your chest to just jump in, like to make some noise, to interrupt, just to prove to the room that you are engaged and that you belong at that table.
You feel like if you don't speak, you don't exist.
Exactly. It's an incredibly overwhelming environment, and it's basically entirely designed to reward whoever can take up the most oxygen. But what if doing exactly the opposite? Like, what if weaponizing your silence is actually the most dominant, powerful move you can make in that exact moment?
Well, what's fascinating here is that society has completely conditioned us to associate volume with value, like deeply conditioned us.
Oh, for sure.
We have this baked-in, culturally reinforced assumption that the person talking the most, or the loudest, is the one adding the most value or holding the most power.
Right, because they're taking up the space.
Right. But when we look at the raw neurological data of human interaction and the psychological breakdowns in our source material today, the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In fact, they are very often just the most insecure. They're using all that noise as a shield, basically, to deflect from a lack of substance.
That is wild. And honestly, that's exactly why our mission for this deep dive into the source material is to just completely reframe how we view introversion.
It's long overdue.
It really is. We are going to dismantle the societal myth that being quiet means being weak or, slow or hesitant.
Because it's none of those things.
Exactly. So whether you are a classic introvert who is just exhausted by constantly being told to come out of your shell.
Ugh, the worst phrase.
Right. Or maybe you're an extrovert trying to figure out how to work with that quiet powerhouse on your team. This deep dive is your playbook. We're going to reveal exactly how silence serves as a highly calculated, incredibly effective psychological tool.
The tactical advantage of strategic silence is huge.
Yeah, we are going to look at the brain chemistry, the negotiation tactics, and the leadership strategies that literally turn stillness into an undeniable advantage.
And, to truly master that stillness, we have to start at the foundational level.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, before we can talk about using silence as a tactical weapon in a boardroom or like a salary negotiation, we have to understand the biological engine behind it.
The actual science of it.
Right. Why do introverts naturally default to silence? It's not a social deficiency. It's not shyness.
Though people always confuse those two.
Constantly.
Yeah.
But it is a biological, neurological reality that is rooted entirely in how the brain processes stimuli.
Right, because for a long time, introversion was treated almost like a pathology, like something that needed to be cured.
Oh, absolutely, like a defect you had to overcome.
Yeah, but the source material dives deep into the actual neuroscience here, specifically how different brains are wired for different neurotransmitters. So extroverts, generally speaking, run on a dopamine-chasing system.
Right. Dopamine is that classic reward chemical.
Exactly, and their brains basically crave noise, novelty, constant interaction, and, high stimulation to get those dopamine spikes.
Well, they literally physically need that friction with the outside world to feel energized and engaged.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when an extrovert walks into a loud, chaotic networking event, their dopamine receptors just light up, right?
They are getting a massive chemical reward for the chaos. It feels good to them.
But the introvert brain is running on a completely different operating system, right?
Entirely different. The introvert brain relies much more heavily on a different neurochemical pathway, specifically acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine. Okay, explain that connection, because this is where the mechanism gets super fascinating to me.
Sure.
From what the source outlines, acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that is linked to deep thinking, reflection, and internal focus. But it's not just about thinking deep thoughts, is it? It's about how it interacts with the nervous system.
That is the crucial distinction right there. Dopamine triggers the sympathetic nervous system.
That's the fight or flight one, right?
Exactly. The action-oriented, forward-moving state. Acetylcholine, on the other hand, activates the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, okay.
This is your rest and digest network. So when an introvert's brain is running on acetylcholine, it is literally forcing the body to calm down, lower the heart rate, and turn its attention inward.
To process all that complex information.
Right. It doesn't reward rapid-fire, surface-level external stimulation at all. It rewards depth, The brain is physically saying, stop moving, stop talking, and process what is happening right now.
Wow, that makes so much sense when you look at fMRI scans of introverts versus extroverts. These source points out that in introverts, blood flow is directed heavily toward the frontal lobes and the anterior thalamus.
Which are the heavy lifters for processing.
Yeah, exactly. The areas of the brain responsible for internal processing, problem solving, and remembering past experiences. It's a longer neural pathway.
The physical journey is longer.
The blood literally has to travel further in the brain of an introvert before they even speak. And this ties into this concept of high cognitive bandwidth.
Right, which is a great term for it.
Because the idea is that while an extrovert might be gliding through that crowded networking event, just, skimming the surface of the room and catching fragments of conversation.
Bouncing from person to person.
Right. The introvert's brain is doing something entirely different. It's absorbing everything at 100% processing capacity.
It's pulling in all the data.
Every bit of it. The introvert is processing 40 different conversations happening in the background. They're reading 20 different subtle shifts in emotional energy, tracking the lighting, the sounds, the micro expressions on people's faces.
It is an absolutely incredible amount of sensory data processing.
It sounds exhausting.
It really is.
Yeah.
And because that pathway is longer and the brain is heavily engaged in that parasympathetic acetylcholine-driven state, the external output, like the talking, the reacting, is delayed.
The source uses a really great analogy here. It says it's like you are a deep sea diver holding your breath in the deep water, exploring the intricate details of a reef, while everyone else is just tiring themselves out, splashing around at the surface.
I love that image. It's perfectly accurate.
It is, but okay, let me push back on this a bit, because this is where the corporate world usually penalizes introverts.
Oh, they definitely do.
If an introvert's brain is doing all of that massive data processing, like reading every microsignal, running all this background computation, doesn't that make them look, frankly, slow to the outside world?
Right, from the perspective of the splashers.
Yeah, because if I'm in a 20-minute rapid-fire budget meeting and it takes me 5 minutes to process all the data and line up my thoughts, the meeting is already over. How does the introvert survive a fast-paced environment when their server takes so long to boot up the response?
That is the exact trap society, and especially corporate culture, falls into. People constantly confuse processing speed with reaction speed.
That's a good way to put it.
And they confuse hesitation with precision. When an introvert pauses in a fast-paced conversation, they are not struggling to find words.
They aren't.
No, and they're certainly not intimidated by the speed of the room. They are running complex pattern recognition. They are filtering out all that extra noise to find the actual core truth of what needs to be said.
So they're analyzing while everyone else is just reacting?
Exactly. Our source uses another analogy that answers your pushback perfectly.
Yeah.
Think of a machine gun. It fires rapidly, makes a ton of noise, and hits everything in the general vicinity.
Right, spray and pray.
Yeah. But a sniper takes significantly longer to act. They have to calculate wind, distance, timing. They take longer, but the sniper hits the exact target every single time.
Okay, sure, a sniper is accurate. But again, in that boardroom, isn't the machine gunner controlling the territory just by laying down covering fire? Like, they own the room.
They are controlling the noise, yes, but they are not necessarily advancing the objective.
Ah.
This is where the biological advantage really kicks in. The extrovert in that meeting might throw out 10 different ideas in 5 minutes, but because they are dopamine-driven, those ideas are often reactive and surface level.
They're just blurting things out to see what sticks.
Exactly. But the introvert is sitting there, letting the loud people exhaust their ammunition while their anterior thalamus synthesizes all 10 of those ideas, identifies the fatal flaw in the current strategy, and formulates the single precise solution.
Wow.
So when they finally speak, it isn't covering fire. It's a structural strike.
I see. So the delay isn't a lag in cognitive ability at all. It is the necessary time required to formulate a high-leverage response.
Exactly. It's deliberate.
So to you listening right now, if someone has ever called you slow or asked why you were so quiet or told you to speak up more in meetings, you need to reframe that immediately.
You are not slow.
You are deliberate. Your brain isn't lacking. It is operating on an entirely different neurochemical pathway, doing incredible deep work that the splashers at the surface simply cannot comprehend.
And once you deeply understand that your silence is just a byproduct of intense internal processing, you can start to pull that silence out of the internal realm and use it externally.
Use it as a tool.
Right. Because the introvert brain is built to absorb and process, their natural state of silence actually becomes a massive tactical advantage.
Yeah.
Especially when you apply it to high-stakes interactions like negotiations, salary discussions, or, workplace conflicts.
Yes, because silence makes people reveal themselves.
Oh, it really does.
This was one of the most fascinating mechanisms detailed in the source material. We usually talk about silence as an absence of noise, but psychologically, silence is a heavy physical presence in a room.
It has a weight to it.
It totally does. Most people simply cannot handle the void of silence. It physically makes them uncomfortable.
It exposes their nervous energy. If we look at this from an evolutionary psychology perspective, humans are tribal creatures, right?
Right.
For tens of thousands of years, silence in a social setting signaled danger.
Like a tiger in the bushes.
Exactly. It either meant a predator was nearby, or it meant you were being socially excluded by the tribe, which historically meant death.
Wow, so it's deeply ingrained in us.
Deeply. So we are biologically conditioned to treat silence as a void that must be filled, usually out of a need for validation, tribe cohesion, or just a sheer fear of being misunderstood.
So when you are in a negotiation and you just sit there and stay silent, you are literally triggering that ancient anxiety in the other person.
You're setting off their alarms.
The other party almost inevitably rushes to fill the space. They feel the void, their dopamine-driven brain panics because it isn't getting any external feedback, and they start talking just to relieve their own internal pressure.
And what happens when they talk?
In their rush to fill the silence, they start dropping all these clues. They reveal their insecurities, their hidden intentions, their emotional patterns. I've actually seen this happen where someone makes an offer, gets met with total silence, and within 10 seconds, they offer a discount without the other person saying a single word.
They literally negotiate against themselves.
It's crazy.
But they absolutely do it.
Oh,
This is the underlying mechanic of the 3-second tactical pause.
tell me more about that.
Well, in any negotiation or conflict, reacting instantly is almost always emotional. It is a sympathetic nervous system response.
The fight or flight.
Right. But responding after a pause is strategic. By pausing for just 3 seconds before you speak, or after they make a demand, you achieve 2 massive psychological shifts.
Okay, what's the first one?
Internally, you give your brain the time to engage that acetylcholine pathway. You separate logic from emotion, which physically lowers your heart rate and keeps your nervous system grounded.
So you don't say something you'll regret.
Exactly. And externally, the second shift is that you keep your leverage intact while applying immense psychological pressure to the other person.
I really want to dig into the exact psychology of that pressure because it is just brilliant. When you withhold verbal cues, the other person's brain goes into overdrive trying to read you.
They are desperate for feedback.
But because you aren't giving them anything to read, what happens? They are forced inward.
Yes. Silence forces the other person's mind to reflect upon itself. Without you giving them verbal cues to react to, they are basically left alone with their own thoughts and their own anxieties.
They start projecting.
Exactly. They start projecting their own insecurities onto your silence.
So if they are internally afraid that their proposal is, say, too expensive, they will interpret your silence as shock at the price.
Right.
If they are worried they sound inexperienced, they will interpret your silence as judgment. You don't have to aggressively poke holes in their argument at all. Your silence acts as a psychological mirror that does it for you.
It reflects their own internal state back at them.
And it amplifies their self-doubt.
And this flips the traditional power dynamic entirely. The loud person, the aggressive negotiator, the one dominating the room, they actually require constant verbal reinforcement to feel in control.
They need you to fight back.
They need people nodding, reacting, arguing back, or getting defensive. They feed on that external friction. It's their fuel.
So when you deny them that fuel through your own calculated stillness, their perceived authority just evaporates.
It just disappears.
It's like a fire. If they are the fire, your reactions are the oxygen. If you just become a vacuum of silence, the fire suffocates on its own.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because their authority was an illusion built on noise. When you refuse to participate in the noise, you expose the hollowness of their control.
They have nothing to push against.
Right. They start questioning themselves because you aren't giving them the reaction their nervous system relies on to gauge their standing in the room.
The takeaway for you here is simple in theory, but, it requires immense discipline and practice. You have to stop rushing to fill awkward pauses.
Just let it sit.
In fact, realize that a pause is only awkward if you believe it is. The anxiety you feel in a quiet room is just social conditioning.
It's not real.
In your next salary negotiation, your next tense dialogue with a boss, or even, a difficult conversation with a partner, just use the pause.
Count to 3.
Let the silence stretch. Let them project their insecurities onto the void. Use it to gain both informational and psychological advantage.
It is a remarkable tool for dismantling an opponent or disarming a conflict. But as we move from conflict resolution into team building, the dynamic shifts.
Right, you can't always be dismantling people.
Exactly. We've seen how silence can break down a negotiation, but how does it build up a team? How do introverts use this same quiet power to project authority and actually lead others?
Because leadership isn't just about making people uncomfortable with silence. You can't just be the silent, intimidating statue in the corner if you want to be a functional, inspiring leader.
A team needs direction.
Yeah, they need to feel supported.
And leadership requires influence. And influence, according to the source material and decades of organizational psychology, comes from credibility, not volume.
Credibility over volume. I like that.
The fundamental formula here is that attention fades, but respect lasts. Loud leaders might command immediate attention. They can whip a room into a frenzy, sure.
Oh, I've worked for that, boss.
Right. But over time, that constant volume often creates chaos. It creates an environment where everyone is reacting, no one is actually processing, and mistakes compound. Calm leaders, on the other hand, create clarity.
Let's talk about how quiet leaders actually manufacture that clarity, because one of the most actionable strategies highlighted in the sources is the principle of speaking last.
This is such a powerful concept.
I love the mechanics of this. So in a meeting, the standard corporate playbook tells you to jump in early, establish dominance, plant your flag on an idea.
Mark your territory.
Exactly. But the introverts playbook says you deliberately hold back. You let everyone else talk. You let them argue, talk themselves into confusion, and frankly, expose their personal agendas.
You sit back and collect the data.
Right. You use that high cognitive bandwidth we talked about earlier to listen and figure out exactly what data they're missing, what their blind spots are. And then, when the noise settles and everyone has totally exhausted their dopamine spikes, you deliver the final synthesized point.
It is the ultimate position of power, and it leverages everything we've discussed about information processing.
How so?
By speaking last, you possess all the information in the room, while everyone else has already spent their energy revealing their hands. You are controlling the energy of the room, not the volume.
Which is a huge difference.
Massive.
Yeah.
True presence isn't built by the words you throw outward to demand attention. It's built by the energy you keep inward. It is a grounded, stable energy that acts as a psychological anchor for a chaotic team.
So they naturally gravitate to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When the market turns or a project fails, the team doesn't look to the person screaming the loudest. They look to the person who hasn't lost their center.
But let me challenge this heavily, because this sounds great in like a controlled vacuum. But we all know modern corporate culture.
Unfortunately, yes.
Whether you are in Silicon Valley tech or Wall Street finance, it is a machine that explicitly and structurally rewards the loudest voices.
It's designed for extroverts.
Yes. The people who brag the most get the promotions. The people who interrupt get noticed by the executives. It's the classic squeaky wheel getting the grease. So how does a quiet leader actually survive, let alone get noticed for promotions or respect, when they completely refuse to play that loud game? Are we just telling introverts to sit quietly and hope someone eventually notices their brilliance?
No, we are absolutely not relying on hope. Hope is not a strategy.
Go.
It's a very real challenge, but the source synthesizes the wisdom to navigate it perfectly by redefining how confidence is demonstrated. Quiet confidence is built in private.
Built in private.
Yes, it does not require stage, but it does require undeniable results. There was a brilliant phrase in the material. Fear melts under preparation.
Oh, I like that.
While the loud people are spending their time and energy performing, networking, bragging, crafting an image, the quiet people are spending their time preparing and mastering their craft.
So the loud people are building a perception of competence, and the quiet people are building actual structural competence.
Precisely. And in the long run, structure wins. When you consistently follow through, when you always know your details, when your data is flawless, your emotional steadiness becomes undeniable.
People start to realize who is actually doing the work.
Right. Think about Jim Collins' famous research on level 5 leaders in the corporate world. The CEOs who transformed good companies into great ones were almost never the charismatic, loud, larger-than-life personalities.
Really?
Yeah, they were overwhelmingly described as quiet, shy, modest, but fiercely resolved. They didn't have to demand respect through volume because their track record of flawless preparation commanded it.
I see. So when the loud leaders project hits a roadblock, they panic, they blame others, they create noise to distract from the failure.
Smoke and mirrors.
Right. But when the quiet leaders project hits a roadblock, they already ran a risk assessment on this scenario during their deep processing time. They just calmly execute the contingency plan.
And that kind of competence speaks infinitely louder than self-promotion.
It forces the corporate ecosystem to adapt to your gravity rather than you burning out trying to mimic theirs.
It does. It shifts the entire dynamic.
That is so empowering. You don't have to try to outshout the room. Let the loud people exhaust their emotional energy. Your playbook is sequential. Observe first, analyze second, act third.
But here's the critical pivot. When you do act, when you do finally speak, the architecture of your speech has to be absolutely flawless.
Right, you can't just mumble.
Exactly.
Got it.
Speaking last only works if your words carry immense weight when you finally open your mouth. If you wait 45 minutes to speak in a meeting and then you mumble a half-baked thought, you've lost all credibility.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of communication. How do introverts engineer their language so that when they finally break their silence, their words land like precision strikes?
Well, it starts by destroying another deeply held myth. The idea that you need to talk more to be heard.
Which is so common.
It is. But the reality of human psychology is that you need to talk less and say more. It is basic behavioral economics applied to communication. Scarcity creates value.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you are constantly talking, your words become a commodity. People tune you out. But if you speak rarely, people inherently assume that what you're about to say is highly important.
So you have to make sure it actually is important.
Exactly. To ensure it is important, you have to practice strict verbal discipline.
And the source outlines a phenomenal tool for this. The 5-word rule. This is just a game changer.
It's incredibly effective.
So the rule is that before you even open your mouth to speak, you must be able to summarize your main point internally in 5 words or less.
Right.
So instead of thinking, I need to talk to the team about how the project is delayed because marketing didn't give us the assets and we don't have enough time to finish before Q3, your 5 words are need timeline for marketing assets.
Simple, clean.
If you cannot distill your point into 5 words before you speak, your mind is disorganized. And the moment you start speaking with a disorganized mind, you are going to ramble.
And rambling destroys authority. It dilutes the power of your silence. Along with the 5-word rule, you have to ruthlessly eliminate verbal static.
Verbal static, what does that include?
These are the weak openers, the qualifiers, and the filler words we all use to soften our presence and avoid seeming aggressive. Phrases like, I might be wrong, but, or this is just my opinion, or sorry, good question.
It is exactly like you are apologizing for existing before you even make your point.
Exactly.
You are signaling to the room, please don't attack me, I know I'm taking up space.
And psychologically, that is a submission signal. It invites people to dismiss you. When you strip away the apologies and the fluff, and you deliver your 5-word thesis cleanly, you are setting a boundary through language.
It's so much more assertive.
It is. You end every message with a clear outcome or direction, which creates certainty. In high-stress, complex environments, human beings naturally gravitate toward and follow certainty. The person who speaks without qualifiers is perceived as the one who holds the truth.
Let's talk about the physical delivery too, because it's not just the words, right? It's the vehicle carrying the words.
Oh, absolutely. Body language is huge.
Because you could have the perfect 5-word summary, perfectly constructed without filler, but if you rush through it at 100 miles an hour while staring at the floor and twisting a pen in your hands, it loses all its impact.
Physical delivery is the anchor for the message. You have to consciously slow your speech rate. Fast talking signals insecurity.
It says you're afraid they'll stop listening.
Right, it tells the listener that you are subconsciously rushing to get your words out before someone interrupts you because you don't believe you own the floor.
But slow speech.
Slow speech signals control. It says, I have the floor and I will take my time. You lower your vocal tone slightly to increase resonance, maintain brief but confident eye contact, and most importantly, you stop fidgeting.
Stop the bouncing knee.
Stop it entirely. Stillness in the body translates to authority in the mind.
Think about what this looks like in a real-world application. Imagine your typical chaotic Zoom meeting.
The worst.
Everyone is cross-talking, the audio is clipping, people are repeating themselves just to fill the dead air and prove they are paying attention. Now, imagine you, the listener. Instead of jumping into that meat grinder of noise, You sit back.
You observe.
You wait for the inevitable pause when everyone runs out of breath or hits a wall of confusion. You lean in, you look right at the camera, and you deliver a clean, filler-free sentence based on your 5-word rule, spoken slowly and deliberately. We must adjust the Q3 budget.
Boom.
And then you just stop talking. You let the silence sit there. The contrast between your calm, scarce delivery and their chaotic noise is utterly magnetic. It acts like a tractor beam for attention.
It pulls all the gravity in the room directly to you. It is incredibly effective. But we have to address the elephant in the room regarding all these tactics.
The cost of doing all this.
Right. Maintaining that level of calculated stillness, running that high cognitive bandwidth to process the room's energy, managing your own parasympathetic nervous system, and carefully engineering your speech, it requires an immense amount of processing power and caloric energy.
It sounds completely exhausting, frankly. I feel drained just mapping out the mechanics of it.
It is exhausting. And this is the vulnerability of the introvert. If an introvert's internal energy battery is drained, all of these high-level psychological strategies collapse.
You just shut down.
You do. You cannot be a calm anchor for a team if your nervous system is fried. You cannot utilize a 3-second tactical pause if you are so overwhelmed that you are slipping into a fight-or-flight sympathetic response.
You'll just snap at people.
Exactly. So, to make any of this work, we absolutely must talk about defense.
Protecting the battery. This is vital. The source points out that introverts leak energy in 3 very specific ways, and you have to plug these leaks if you want to maintain your edge.
What's the first one?
First, environmental drains. This is the physical stuff, and it ties right back to that sensitive nervous system. Bright fluorescent lights, chaotic open-plan offices, constant background noise, notifications pinging on Slack, people popping by your desk for a quote-unquote quick chat.
Which is never quick.
Never. Because your brain processes every single sensory detail at a high level, a noisy environment sends your system into sensory gating overload.
Your brain is trying to process the hum of the air conditioner with the same intensity as the spreadsheet in front of you.
Which is wildly inefficient.
It drains your battery rapidly. Then you have social drains. People often misunderstand this. It isn't just about disliking people or being misanthropic.
Right. Introverts like people.
They do. It's the exhaustion of surface-level interactions, group overload, forced small talk at networking events, and the immense pressure to perform sociability and fake extroversion when your battery is already low.
And the third one, which I think hits hardest for the quiet leaders, is emotional drains. This is the dark side of high cognitive bandwidth.
Oh, this is a big one.
Because introverts are naturally great listeners, highly observant, and often possess high affective empathy, people naturally gravitate to them. Coworkers just back up their emotional dump trucks and unload all their workplace drama, personal problems, and anxieties onto you.
They treat you like a sounding board.
You become the unofficial therapist of the office, and you absorb all of that heavy, chaotic energy.
Which leaves you with absolutely zero cognitive fuel for your own deep work. And this is a tragedy because deep work is where an introvert's actual, undeniable value is created.
Because they're built for it.
Exactly. Because you are biologically engineered for sustained concentration and complex problem solving, your highest professional output happens in 60 to 90-minute blocks of uninterrupted, singular focus.
That deep flow state.
Right. This aligns with our natural ultradian rhythms, but you can't enter that flow state of deep work if you are constantly leaking energy to your environment, to social obligations, and to emotional vampires.
Which means you have to aggressively rely on solitude. But the source makes a brilliant distinction here that we need to emphasize. Solitude isn't loneliness.
Not at all.
Loneliness is a state of lack. Solitude is a laboratory. It is the controlled environment where you synthesize all the data you collected while you were quietly observing the meeting.
You need that time to process.
But to turn solitude into creation, you have to be highly disciplined. You have to eliminate digital noise and pre-select a single point of focus. You can't just go into a quiet room, shut the door, and then doom scroll on social media or check emails for an hour.
Exactly. That is just replacing environmental noise with digital noise. It still drains the battery. True solitude requires rigid boundaries. It requires you to actively defend your time.
But let me play devil's advocate again, looking at this from the outside perspective of team dynamics.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you are setting all these rigid boundaries, if you are always leaving the networking party an hour early, If you repeatedly say no to casual coffee catch-ups, if you keep your office door physically closed all day, or block out your calendar so no one can book meetings with you to protect your deep work blocks, doesn't that just make you look arrogant?
People do worry about that.
Doesn't it make you look like you aren't a quote-unquote team player, or that you are completely antisocial?
This is a crucial reframing, and it is the central philosophy of the source material when it comes to self-preservation. The strongest, most effective version of you is built through boundaries.
Through boundaries.
Yes. You are not blocking the world out of malice, arrogance, or a lack of care. You are aggressively filtering what aligns with your well-being so that you can actually produce the high-value work the team relies on you for.
Ah, so it's actually for the team's benefit.
Exactly. If you say yes to every coffee chat, you might be liked in the short term, but you will fail to deliver the strategic insights that make you respected in the long term.
You are protecting the asset. You can't give water from an empty well.
Exactly.
Furthermore,
We need to kill the myth that quiet people are antisocial. They are not. They simply crave depth over width in their social interactions.
depth over width.
An extrovert might want 50 casual acquaintances to bounce ideas off of, and that's fine for them. But an introvert wants 3 to 5 deeply meaningful, high-trust relationships.
The tight circle.
Right. Introverts make exceptional partners, mentors, and leaders precisely because they do not give their energy away indiscriminately. They don't spread themselves thin. They give their energy to the right people at the right time with absolute undivided focus.
When an introvert gives you their attention, you are getting the full power of their cognitive bandwidth.
Exactly.
So, to you listening, the takeaway here is vital. Stop apologizing for needing space. Your need to recharge is not a character flaw. It is basic biological